Welcome to the Ramon Foster Show. I am Eddie Provident. With me, as always, is Ramon Foster himself, and the two of us are brought to you on this fine Friday by the Get-Go Cafe and Market, always serving up hot, fresh food 24/7. I think I might go get me a breakfast burrito when I leave here today, Moan.
Breakfast burritos are good any time of the day. Just in case you was wondering, they are that legit. Okay, so
you can never not. There's never not a good time to have a breakfast burrito.
100%. So yeah, you do that, and you let me know, and then you buy me one when I see you. How about that?
Man, I'm gonna buy you that, and I'm gonna go off the rails here for a second. I'm buying Minios too. We've already talked about this, but for those of you in Pittsburgh that know, I'm a Minios guy.
Yep,
I'm taking Ramon to Minios when he's in town for this Tennessee game.
Absolutely, Eddie. Let's rock, man. Happy Friday, though.
Happy Friday, man. We got some football. Again, we talked about it yesterday, but man, it's the first game of the season. We're going to talk about it again today. We've got football, man. And what I want to what's the flow of this preseason game? What do you think this is going to be? I think it's going to be run heavy. I think we're going to see a lot of the running backs. But what do you think? How do you think this game's going to go tomorrow?
The flow is get it over with fast. Let us evaluate you and please stay healthy. That's going to be it, man. And of course, the coaches want to, plan some stuff. If they get into a position where they're being schematic and trying to figure out what matchup, but there's not much film out there. Most of the guys you're playing are going to be young guys, and this game plan is going to be simple. And I know we want to see some of what, Matt Canada does offensively, but it'll probably be very run heavy, which kind of, leads us into what I think is very important to see as we kind of get excited for this game. Most of the times when in my younger career, when we were playing and we were leading up to the preseason, it was, let's run the ball. Big men up front. Let's see what we're going to do with this. And not just that, running backs. If the OL do what they're supposed to do, will you hit the gap the way you're supposed to? Will you be able to break out into open yardage and get us those chunk plays on the run game, 20 plus yards? Will you be able to hit a home run? This is what we're looking for as far as those guys. Starting with Benny for me, man, I think he probably gets first stab at it just simply because he's the veteran guy of this group that kind of commands that a little bit as far as him continue to make his stake on this team. And he plays a huge role in special teams. So if he get his reps, look good and get out, then he can go do the things he have to do special teams wise with Danny Smith. Shout out to the big jaw of bubblegum. He'll on the sideline tomorrow night anyway. But the rest of this group is pretty intriguing, man, just in general. We're probably not going to see Najee Harris, and I think that's good, and y'all know all the reasons why. There's no real reason to get into that. But guys off top, Anthony McFarland, of course, Mateo Durant is another rookie guy. Master Teague, which is very interesting to me. I remember from Ohio State. He's also a Tennessee kid from Murfreesboro. Signed with the Bears and ended up getting cut 3 days later. I'm wondering what's going on around that. If he gets his opportunities, what is he going to do to capitalize on them? And then, of course, Jaylen Warren. I've heard a lot of good things about him, Eddie. But it's a factor of the five guys up front for the most part. And then we'll see what these running backs do. If I'm banking on somebody being able to do something, I feel like Jaylen Warren has been the guy we've heard more and more. Anthony McFarland has a little bit of a name. And, of course, you guys know, even though he's a Kentucky grad and I went to UT, I'll still root for Benny Snell because he's such a gritty player, man.
Yeah, I like Benny Snell a lot. And he seems like a really good dude off the field, too. And those are the kind of guys you root for, But Jaylen Warren's the one for me. I saw him in minicamp and being, on the field watching him. He's got that really – that plant foot, when he plants and cuts, he's really good at it. He's kind of just like a ball of muscle. Like, he's not a big guy, but he's a strong guy, and he bounces off tacklers really well. He kind of reminds me of I wouldn't say as good, but he reminds me of a Maurice Jones-Drew type of running back, okay, that bowling ball. Yeah. Where he bounces around, gets, and the next thing you know, he's got 5 yards. And that's what he's been doing in training camp. And so I want to see if that translates to the game. And I want to see if the bright lights affect him at all, because he's another undrafted guy. He's a young dude. But I think he does have some skill, and I think that he has the potential. And I'm not just going by this. This is what Mike Tomlin has said. If you haven't read Dale's piece on Jaylen Warren, it's on the website, DKPittsburghSports.com. I highly recommend it. Even Mike Tomlin has said that he's been one of the better running backs in training camp. So I'm excited to see him out of all of them because we've seen the rest of them. We've seen Benny Snell. We've seen Anthony McFarland. We know what to expect from them. I want to see some of these new guys and see what they have to offer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'll say this too, just because the roster is what the roster is, man. If that's the case for a young guy like Jaylen Warren, and shout out to Lolly also, just because the coverage of these type of guys, like we always know about the big name guys, like Dale being able to, get a microscope on this and really focus in on a guy that really has a shot. And that's where you look at it as far as Benny's positioning. Like he has to have a good showing because you have this young guy who's a bowling ball, and at 5'8", about what is he, 215, 220? Like that's his role. If he gets speed to where he can break off to the edge and be consistently the guy that's not going backwards despite what the offensive line does, then that could be good for him. Coach Tomlin always, and I mean always, guys, look for that hidden gem guy. Looks for that guy that, that makes him reflect on himself when he was coming up. And Jaylen Warren doesn't come from a small school. He's Oklahoma State. So he's played big time ball, mostly in air raid type of offense. So his run skills probably weren't put on display as much as you needed them to, which could lead you to a undrafted type of situation. He loves these type of dudes. Why? Because you're going to get the maximum output out of them, and they appreciate the moments in which they're given. And that's the beauty of what preseason to me is. And I know people say meaningless games. They are as far as win losses. But for guys like him, guys like Master Teague, guys like, Mateo Durant, this means a lot for those type of dudes. And Mateo Durant's a 6'1" running back. Like we're getting into Derrick Henry territory right now. But he's got to be able to put it on display too coming out of Duke.
Yeah, imagine, if he's the guy that makes the team. Imagine, Najee at 6'2" with his size, and then Mateo Durant comes in to spell him, and he's 6'1" with his size. That's another, that's an aspect that you don't really see on a lot of teams. So I like what you said about this not being a meaningless game, because for a lot of us, it is whatever. But I think the fans, like the true fans of football, not even just Steeler fans, just football fans, I think we appreciate the battles. And so when the third and fourth quarter gets there and we're a bunch of guys that maybe we've never heard of, I get excited because you get to see these guys who we talked yesterday about life after football. They're legitimately playing for their careers and their livelihood. And that's, there's more on the line in these preseason games for them than there is in a regular season game for some guys.
It is, man. And that's why I always I don't push back, but I just kind of say it's meaningless as far as wins and losses.
Right.
But we're talking about livelihoods here. We're talking about guys, this is probably their only shot to get on that 53-man roster or practice squad. Like I said, just bringing up Master Teague's name. Like he's a kid that's already been cut as a rookie after 3 days in camp. Like those last 8 minutes of the fourth quarter, they mean a crap ton to a dude like that.
And also, what an elite name, Master Teague. Like,
come on,
the kind of guy you want to. Master Teague broke one for 80. Like, that's the guy you want.
Come on, imagine. And not just that, Master Teague the third.
Oh man,
come on.
What a name.
That's like with the Titans is Robert Woods, and they nickname him Bobby Trees. I don't know.
What a nickname.
I don't know.
Man,
Ragu got to step it up.
Right? Hey, Moan, when we come back, speaking of games that matter, I want to get into like X's and O's with you. I really want to talk football with you for a little bit. So that's what we're going to do in the second segment. Stick around. Ramon Foster Show. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. I don't know how you follow up Bobby Trees, but we're going to try to follow it up, man. I'm not going to get over that nickname. That is so good. Moan, I want to talk X's and O's with you. I want to talk, technique. I want to talk ball because, I did get a chance to talk to Craig Wolfley. And him and I and another guy, Chris Carter, we were all talking about, just the different types of offensive linemen that there are, especially on this team. And, he was talking about how if you look at him and Tunch Ilkin, RIP, how Tunch was more of a go out and fight him and, step and punch kind of guy, where Wolf liked to be that close combat, like come in, and I know, from going to offensive line camps with our kids, we've got, you got guys who, especially with tackles, teach them that you need to pick the point where you're going to go to the fight, and you need to get to that point before the defender does, and you need to get out and start the combat where you want to start the combat. So my first question to you, before we get into more X's and O's type stuff, what kind of combat guy were you as an offensive lineman?
I was a come to me and let's fight type of guy.
Okay.
Because, athletically, I didn't want to chance myself as far as getting in a bad position going forward. DeCastro could set a guy at the line of scrimmage, because he's really good athlete. He was shorter than I was. He was a lighter weight than I was. So him being able to, set at the line of scrimmage and get his feet going and just punch, or for him, the fact that he was a little bit lighter, he had to stop their charge. Me, I'm like, all right, my technique is going to be flawless enough to where if you come towards me, I can stop you either way that you go. Like, that's the beauty of having a guy as a coach that says, look, I'm going to teach you my technique and what I expect from you. But within that, you throw your own little seasonings and spices, and you put your own little herbs in there, and you figure that out as according to how you feel comfortable and is successful. That was the one of the many things I loved about Coach Munch, and how he let us be our own person within his scheme. Every single day we worked on the one-on-one basics of what his techniques asked us to do: stepping over the line, moving forward, pass set, 1-2, get back. You know what I'm saying? Like helping out one to another. And that's just the same for, let's say, let's go outside and let's go tackles. Tackles, for the most part, the way you stereotype them is the big athletic guy. They're probably expected to be the more athletic dudes on the offensive line. I just got an alert to my phone yesterday as far as Dwayne Brown being signed to the Jets. Like, that broke yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, well, they lost a big athletic guy, Mekhi Becton, for the year. Well, they go get a bigger, older guy like Dwayne Brown, who's been killing it for a little while. Also, you want those dudes to be comfortable in space. You want them to be basketball players. You want them to not be heavy-footed. At least, I'll say this, specifically on the left side for a right-handed throwing back. Now the importance of the right tackle used to be, okay, the big guy who's good enough but not as athletic as the left tackle. Like, I need to be able to have the run support on the right side as far as moving guys off the ball. You don't have to be more athletic than the left tackle because the quarterback can see the rusher coming.
Right. That's
kind of switched a little bit these days, man. Chukwuka Okorafor is by far one of the most athletic guys I've ever seen play offensive line.
He is.
But I don't know if he was overly comfortable playing left than he is right. And that's okay, too. You still get an athlete. That's the reason I speak so highly of Dan Moore. Being able to handle that left tackle position the way he did as a rookie, now going into his second year, that speaks volumes about, one, his athleticism, his maturity, and just his work ethic too. So that, to me, is the one way you can categorize those guys. And let's even go down a little bit in memory lane. Kelvin Beachum, undersized dude, okay? But if you look at him, Kelvin arms is long. He's got a high butt, which meaning he's got good trunks underneath him as far as strength and rolling his hips. When I say that, you know exactly what I mean, all football people. But this is what he had to do in his sets, because Beach might have been hovering 295, 305 at 6'2", but he's a starting NFL left tackle. He had to be very sound technically, very, very sound, because he had zero error for the tall guys that was going to rush him or the speed guys. And he would go start the fight a whole lot quicker than on the other side, Marcus Gilbert or Mike Adams, who had the size, who had, more athleticism. Beach had to be technically sound, be able to punch guys' face off, because he had to stop that charge. And then technically when he engages, he's got to be able to be good with his feet and his bend and his hips. As a young guy, I don't know if I've seen a younger dude spend more time on rehab and just massage therapy and stuff like that to keep his body up to compete. You know, so it's the height and size don't necessarily matter when it comes to who's playing what, but there is an expectation if you are breaking the mold a little bit at that tackle position.
Another thing I want to ask you about is, because we talk about this, like the hand fighting, the hand-to-hand combat, close quarters, but I think the one thing that maybe if you're not a football person that you don't realize is probably the most important thing for an offensive lineman is footwork.
Yeah.
And so talk about, the difference between the footwork for these athletic guys like the left tackles, especially, and the, guys like Chooks, where you've got to shuffle, you got to shuffle. And while you're shuffling, you're punching. Where a guard, where, it kind of, because you're on the interior line, a guard in the center, your footwork is more like be sturdy, make sure they're not moving you.
Who's the big guy from the Patriots? Brown is his last name. Played for the Patriots. He got traded. Their big right tackle. Now, I'm watching him play, and I'll have to give you his name at some point. We'll probably put it over to the side somewhere. I'm watching him do his sets when he was with the Raiders about 2 years ago. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is the worst set I've ever seen in my life. Trent Brown. Never, as a young guy, watch him because the technique is only built for him. Okay? It's only built for him. I'd even go so far as Trent Williams. Like, nobody like moving like him.
Don't follow the trends is what you're saying.
Follow your technique.
Right.
Trent Brown, absolutely not. And so I think he's a damn good athlete. But the sets are quick. 1-2 is precise. It's almost as if you're shuffling like a basketball player out sometimes. Not out, but down and out. It's the way you got to do as far as the tackle position, because there's a little bit more space. You got to close that space to kind of find your attack point. At guard, it's a little bit more square with a little bit of an angle the way you set guys at guard, because they're right up on you. If you give up too much of an angle, you give them the inside charge. If you go too vertical, they can beat you on the edge quicker, because those D linemen and sometimes defensive ends and linebackers that line up over guards, they are faster. They're quicker mostly than guards. The center position, the way we taught it, was to get back vertical. I know it sounds like funny, like why you get back vertical that's going to the quarterback. No, the center for the most part is above everybody else when it comes to where he sets the ball at and where he lines up. Your first step is to snap the ball, get even with everybody else. If we are a fence, we're protected a whole lot better when it comes down to how we're keeping the quarterback in the pocket.
Right.
It's a lot that goes into it. More centers, which Pounce was phenomenal at, stay more square until they're needed either left or right. And not just that, most centers, Pounce would snap the ball, and if he was going right to the Castro, he would still punch the tackle with the D tackle with his arm just to stop their charge. Because if he's going right, somebody's probably lined up on Dave in the 3 technique, and they're probably on him or me in the shade. So he punch and go right. It's so intricate, man. And I want to tell you how to read it, but you just got to watch it.
Dude, I love it because everyone thinks of offensive linemen as these, big brute.
Yeah.
The guys who are just like, they don't got to think about anything. They just got to fight. And then you realize that every angle, if someone's lined up on to your right, like, well, how does that change you? If someone's lined up on a 3, how does that change what you do? There are so many things that go into offensive line. I think that's why when you do see people, we talked about this yesterday, going into the media and everything, there's so many offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that there's anybody on the field that knows the game and everything that's going on in the game as well as the offensive linemen do.
And you have to, because your job depends on it, because you're protecting the guy behind you that's taking up the biggest percentage of the cap space. I'll say this as far as Pounds. I've talked about it almost everybody except for the center. Most centers are usually smaller dudes, but they're usually quicker. They're usually square body guys, and they're usually, guys that's got really good hips. And for the most part, those guys at that position overutilize their punch. I wasn't a huge puncher because, like I said, I could wait on you. Come in into the meat locker. Let's go. That was me. Let's start this fight on my turf. Come over here. But Pounce, man, had one of the most violent punches of almost anybody I played with and just watched. Also, those guys got to get guys off of them. So their punch and delivery of stopping that shock and awe is kind of huge for them at that position. Athletic dudes usually can get off in space. Think about the last few we've had. House, Damani. It's just some legendary guys. Jeff Hardings. I mean, come on.
Man, Moan, I know what we say this every second, but I could listen to you talk ball. I could listen to you explain this for hours, man. I could sit here
and I got more. I promise you, we can dive, and maybe we ought to live stream these segments one day and just
maybe just let it roll. Just
do a split screen with film and talk it through.
I'd love it.
Listen to the idea right there.
There's an idea, man. When we come back, I don't know how it's going to top this segment, but it's everyone's favorite segment, the Hey Moan segment. All right, welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. It's everybody's favorite segment, the Hey Moan segment, and I've got a good one for you. It kind of like bounces, it kind of transitions perfectly from the last segment. We were talking X's and O's, and this is from T Bunner 66 on the site, and he says, "Hey Moan, who was the one guy that you just hated going up against in camp? The guy that would just bring it every single day and never took a day off." I think I know what your answer is going to be. I'm sure there's a lot of guys like, James Harrison's probably one that comes to mind. I'm sure for the guys now, TJ Watt is somebody, but who was your guy? Like, who was the guy that, you hated to play against?
Hated to go up against. The most obvious one is Cam. I
thought you were going with this. Yep.
It's Cam, man. But I've spoken so much about Cam lately that it's just like, who he is, and everybody sees who he is too. Just simply because Cam is a go-harder, always has been, always will be, because you hear him say those two things. But it's two guys that come to mind, man, I have a world of respect for. And there's plenty of other guys. So I'll say this. I hated going up against the young defensive linemen because you never knew what they were going to do. The coaches would put them up there because they needed to see a veteran rep. Right. And all I wanted to do was just grab their little ass and just throw them across the room, okay? But then I would get away from my technique because we just spoke about that, and I could get like an okay rep. But they're looking at this as an opportunity. I'm looking at this like, all right, let's just get this play over with. Okay, just because their fight in camp is a little bit different. I knew when I was gonna make the team those years as a starter, I could see in the future, like, I just got to get to week one. Okay, but it was a good refresher though too, because that's the way it is in a game. Sometimes I might not have a whole lot of film on the guys behind the starters, and I always focus in on those dudes too, because those are the ones that'll embarrass you, okay? And I didn't want that in camp, and I didn't want that in practice, and I daggone sure didn't want that in the games too. But aside from the defensive linemen, and there's been a lot of those dudes come along the way, and you just be like, man, golly, you're young, I get it, but I'm not here for you. I'm here for Cam. But the two other guys that come to mind, man, respectfully, is friggin' Vince Williams.
Okay.
And Ryan Shazier. The shake and bake. Okay, and now let me explain both of them. The reason Vinny is the most obvious. Y'all love and adore Vince Williams, who's still coming on this show because of how he played. He is Pittsburgh. He's a Florida kid, but he's Pittsburgh, and he's hard downhill. As a young guy, me and Vinny, and we're going to talk about the story. I want to hear his version of it. I pull around the corner in camp, and I'm damn near fed up with Vince. Okay, just because everything that he did, he was overly trying to prove his self-worth, and he did that to the day he friggin' retired. And I feel like, and I need to hear this from him, the reason he retired is because the interest in doing that just wasn't in him anymore. And I love to hear this, but he used to just come downhill and just, and I'm like, all right, young fella, I've been doing this for a little bit too. Let's see what we can do. And I pulled around and I hit him, and he said, I made his nose bleed. And I was like, well, you done? Are you finished now? Okay. We have an agreement that we know how to practice against one another. And we had a good, and Vinny always went hard no matter what after it. But as far as like the face-to-face, just him trying to prove himself when he got established, he felt really good about that. And I was happy for him. One of the biggest Vince Williams fans ever. And the other guy, man, is Ryan Shazier. Because as brutal as Vinny was, Shazier was just so daggone slippery. Like, I went to go hit him one time, and I pretty much, the bull going through the red linen. That was me, because I'm expecting this guy, Shazier, 6'2", 6'3"-ish. About, what was he, 225 at the time, 230-ish, and maybe 240.
Built like a Greek god, yeah.
He's like Xerxes.
Right.
And friggin' 300.
Yeah.
He's like Xerxes, man. So I'm seeing him like, oh, this guy's about to bring the boom. Little did I know he was a friggin' slippery worm out there that you couldn't hit. And I used to be like, dude, hit me. He's like, why would I hit you when I'm trying to make the play? I said, oh, okay. But like camp against him was just like, let's say if we had a front side run and on the back side, and I'm on the back side, and I gotta get to Shazier. The play don't work if I don't get to Shazier, okay? Wow. He's on the backside. I'm on the backside. I would abort Alejandro so damn fast, like, Al, you got him because I got to go. And I will be in my stance, and I'm moving, trying to get to him. And Shazier just breeze on by. I'm like, you bastard. Like, why are you this fast? That was me. And I think that's why all of us have this. That's why we adore Shazier. That's why we, hurt it so bad when he wasn't around, because imagine that guy now. Ugh.
Oh, man.
Ugh.
Wow.
Okay, so those are the two dudes that I hated going up against, with respect to, James Harrison, Larry Foote, Potsy, Troy, all those guys. But yeah.
Was there somebody in camp that maybe the names that you named were guys that like kind of their names carried some respect. They carried some weight. Right. Was there a guy that maybe didn't have that same respect that was like, trying to, like
I got him right now.
Didn't, the guy in the back of the room that's like everyone else in the class is just like, listen, they're grading on a curve. Let's just keep the curve what it is so everyone can pass. And then there's that one dude that's like motor's way too high all the time trying to be the overachiever.
Not even that. This guy, and he's still playing to this day with the Tampa Bay Bucks, Super Bowl winning champion now, undrafted guy from what's the name of his school? Steve McClendon.
Oh, okay.
Undrafted dude from what's the name of Steve's college? See, that's how small his school was. Troy. He's from Troy University.
Yeah.
But just not even just the motor. So friggin' strong. Just has this long arm move that you be like, Steve, golly, how are your arms that long? And they weren't. It's the way his technique was, but strong as an ox. And to this day, he was a huge part of that Tampa Bay defense. And you look at him on the field, and he's now about to be 14 years in as an undrafted guy that's still playing relatively well for his age and from the pathway that he came into this NFL, man. That to me, and we were roommates coming out my red shirt year while we were staying then at the Allegheny Center, not too far from PNC Park. That's my brother coming in as an undrafted guy. He was, practice squad for a couple of years, finally making the roster, and just watch the growth of his body, getting bigger, getting more technically sound, and just becoming a savvy vet, man. That's the one guy in the back of the room that you look at now and you say, yeah, he earned every bit of this.
Well, Moan, this week has been fun. I've enjoyed it, man. It's been nice to be back in the host seat for a couple of days and, getting to talk a little bit with you. To everybody that's watched this week, we appreciate you. Numbers are doing well on the show. If you're not subscribed and you're not, if you don't have the alerts on, make sure you do that because, DK and Ramon bring it every day and they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun to listen to and hang out with. So for Ramon Foster, for DK Pittsburgh Sports, I'm Eddie Provident. DK will be back on Monday. It's been a fun week. Take care, and we'll see you later.
Stay safe, people.